I've been looking forward to this kōrero for a wee while now. And I'm so very humbled and privileged and grateful to have Aleisha and also Léon here with us to share and talk on and discuss on this very important topic. By no means will it be a comprehensive, extensive kōrero because we only have an hour, but hopefully we'll be able to cover off some important, some important discussion in terms of DEI, digital equity and inclusion. So we're going to start off with some introductions from our two kai kōrero today. I'll leave it to them to introduce themselves, but I'm going to hand it over to Aleisha first, who will lead us out, and then she'll hand it on to Léon, and he'll hand it back to me, and we'll get into the question time. Ka pai. Kia ora, Aleisha.
Kia ora. I te tuatahi, ko waio, ko ruapehu te maunga, ko Aotea te waka, ko te Ati Haunui a pāpārangi rātou, ko Ngāti Maru, ko Ngāti Haua, ngā iwi, kei te noho au ki te Wanganui ātara, ko Aleisha Amohia tōku ingoa. So first off, hi, I'm Aleisha. I'm based in Wellington, born and raised here. On my dad's side, we whakapapa tū Taumaranui and India. And on my mum's side, my mum was born in Cambodia and came here in the 80s. I'm the eldest of 4 kids, and I feel like that, I mention that because I feel like that's a big indicator of my personality and the way that I carry myself as a big sister. In my mahi, I'm a technical lead at an open source company called Catalyst, and I've actually been here coming up to 11 years. I was lucky enough to be taken on as an intern when I was 16 and worked part-time while I finished high school and while I did my degrees at uni. And about 3 years ago, I became technical lead. I work in a team called Ropu Kohinga, and our work is all about helping others manage their collections. So we work mostly with libraries and educational institutions and iwi organizations, for example, and help them manage their collections. So that might be books, but often it's also images or films or simply data sets. And a little bit more about me. When I was at uni, I went to Vic Uni, and the environment there was pretty male oriented. And so myself and a few others co-founded a club for women in tech, and that kind of took me down this path of activism. And so since then, I've been on a number of different committees and boards. Usually they have a focus on gender or Indigenous rights. And when I'm really lucky, I'm able to overlap that kaupapa with tech. So that's what I'm hoping to bring into today's kōrero. Kia ora.
Kia ora, ko Léon hau, ko ngā pui te iwi, ko Ngāti Hamua te iwi, ko ngā te manu te hapu, ko karatu, tuku marae. Kia ora, my name's Léon, and a little bit about myself. My dad's side, I whakapapa back up north to Ngāpuhi, where our whānau is from Karatu, which is just nearby in the Bay of Islands near Kawakawa. And then my mum, I whakapapa back to Europe, over to the Netherlands. So a bit of a mix. I've got an older brother. He's 9.5 months older, so we were always quite close as kids. And then I've got a younger brother who is 14 years younger, so there was a bit of a switch up there. And then I currently work in advertising. I have a background in acting, and I started out studying at Vic University as well in the arts, and then I ended up doing a little stint over in America, and then I kind of had a not sure period, and I ended up coming up to Tamaki Makaurau, and I studied advertising by accident. And I really ended up enjoying it. And I've been in the industry for, I'm going to say 4 years now, and which has taken me on a bit of an adventure. My first job was over in Spain, and then I ended up coming back to Aotearoa, and we'll probably open up about it later. Just my experiences I ended up founding a directory for POC, like people of color, rainbow, and disabled talent through my experiences in advertising, and which I'll probably share more later on. But that's kind of my journey, and it's been a big part of that has been a learning journey in myself as well, and how representation is, how important it is in this space, and why I'm so like passionate about it. So I'll pass it back to Lee, and he'll have questions later on, which will probably open that up.
Yeah, thanks, Léon, and thanks to you both as well for those introductions and sharing a little bit more about yourselves and your mahi. I should mention, I would love to mention that Léon is currently our emergent icon for this year, so that's an amazing accolade and acknowledgement of your mahi e hoa, and should also want to acknowledge Aleisha as well for being our Rangatira Tipu recipient last year, as well as Kiwiback New Zealand of the Year Local Hero, if I'm not mistaken, last year as well. So, hey, I reckon these acknowledgements and accolades and awards are really just testament to the mahi, the important and meaningful mahi that you both do for our people, for our communities, particularly in this DEI space. So, I've been really looking forward to this kōrero. So, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I know you are both very busy people. So yeah, very grateful. So we're going to get started. I know you've already kind of touched on this first question in ways, but I'm really keen for you both to kind of give us a little bit more context and background, perhaps even some stories. And the first question, I think we'll start with you, Léon, just because we left it with you. The question is, tell us a bit more about your current work in this space in terms of DEI.
So just what I touched on with my intro, I have a background in acting, and then I really loved it, and I loved that theatre acting space, but it was a hard gig, because you kind of like work hard and go to auditions, and you have to face a lot of no's, and you have to you don't get paid for it, So I ended up having a little bit of a kind of time off after uni, and then I was like, okay, I need to do something now again. And so I ended up coming to Tāmaki Makaurau, where I studied advertising, and I've been in the industry for 4 years. And in my time in the industry, being on the other side of the camera, so I've made ads for like BNZ and AMI and Skinny and Spark and Pedigree, some big clients there. State is another one. And just in my experiences being in the advertising and being behind the camera, there's been some questionable moments around casting for me, especially around casting appropriately for people of color or rainbow, the rainbow community or the disabled community. And what I found really hard was often that I was swimming against the current, because I was usually the only Māori in the room, and especially because I was also the only Māori in my department, I would often get the briefs for Matariki or Te Wiki work, and so I would have to make that for big brands, and to be the only Māori in the room as well, I really had to get across the tikanga for the culture, and that was hard. And so in that journey, I really learned in myself that I had to speak up more. I started out quite quiet and, you know, very young and very junior. And then I realized that nobody was kind of, you know, there wasn't, nobody else was going to not necessarily back me, but I had to do it myself. And so that's when I started speaking up a bit more, and I needed to, not just for myself, but for Māori as well. And it wasn't always favorable, but it was necessary. And as part of that, there had been bigger strides that had definitely been made because of that, which I'm happy about. And especially in the advertising world, you know, people hate ads, and so, you know, like to have to like appeal, and then on top of that be like culturally appropriate is a really hard gig. So and it's very, you know, precious territory that you need to get right, and often in this industry, it's a lot of it's money and time, or lack of time. And it was about ensuring there was enough time there for everyone to understand, because it wasn't just about making the work, it was about teaching and bringing everyone along on the journey as well. So there was so many experiences in that. And then coming from a background in acting, I had one experience where we had thumbnails of all talent on a TV for casting, and what we were after was a queer couple. And I remember one of my colleagues said at one point, "Oh, well, let's cast her because she looks queer, and let's cast her because she looks queer." And I had to like raise my hand and be like, "Have we actually asked for any queer talent?" And nobody had considered that in the room. And we were already a couple of castings through, which in terms of money, there was a budget for that, and we only had one more round to go. So we had to brief that back in for the right rainbow talent, which we then ended up getting, which meant the money was going back into that community, and we had authenticity on screen, and not just you know, someone who was the pigeonhole or stereotype of what, you know, a straight white male thinks queer is. So with experiences like that, I ended up founding a directory that was for POC, rainbow, and disabled talent, because there are so many loopholes and so many obstacles that we had to get over to find the right talent, that it was almost difficult. It was hard, and I thought it doesn't really need to be this hard. There's so much out there, but we get so hidden or blend in so much with everybody else that people come up with excuses and say, "Oh, we couldn't find them," or "there weren't any," or anything like that. And so it was a process. It was an idea. It started as an idea, and the big turning point for me and Beings was when I ended up applying for funding, and I got funding for it. And so that's when I was like, "Oh, okay, well, this is going to happen now." I think I applied for 75,000, and then I got 50,000 from Creative New Zealand, and which I'd never like applied for before. It was all new to me, but I was like, I don't want to give $50,000 back. I'll do something with that. Like, and so yeah, so I ended up making the directory website, and ever since then it's just continued to gain momentum, which proves the need in the industry for the directory. So most recently, we worked with New Zealand Fashion Week and we ended up getting, I think there was about 10 gigs out of New Zealand Fashion Week for like models to walk on the runway. So that was a massive example of how much it's needed. And one of our models was even just street cast. They signed up, they had no experience before, and then they got every gig that they were put forward for, which just again proves there's so much to be offered in that space. So it's been really nice to see how well the industry has resonated with it and have jumped on board to really support it and total it, because I often get briefs coming through now that they're like, we need a queer couple, or we need someone who's disabled and Pacifica, and I'm like, oh, I can help you with that. And to know that they're looking in the right places and they're looking for authenticity, and that those gigs and those the money is going back into the communities has been like massive. So it's still young and still growing, but it's where I am at the moment. It's been such a big passion of mine to ensure that there is authenticity in those spaces, especially in media and what is put out into culture, and how people see these communities, and making sure that they see them authentically and not just in a stereotype way. One example is, on the website, if you're looking for Māori, you can put in Māori, and there's the spectrum, and it's not just, dark and black hair and all of that. So it's been such a fun journey. But yeah, I think that's covered everything mostly.
Awesome, amazing. Thanks, Ewa, for those wonderful, rich insights, and really, really awesome to hear about your mahi, and congratulations as well on standing up beings. It's an important piece of work. I feel it's milestone work, so thank you. Coming over to you now, Aleisha. You'll be waiting patiently there. Really keen to hear about all of the mahi you do. You wear a number of portai in this space, so keen to hear a little bit more. I'll hand it over to you now. Kia ora.
Kia ora. I mean, I can really attest to how important Léon's work is, because that kind of isolation and loneliness that you spoke about, that's how I felt when I started studying computer science at Vic. And the lack of media representation for women in technology, let alone brown women, was a real reason that we needed to create a group like Women in Tech. And so I really related to that part of your story. And yeah, so I mean, Women in Tech for me, that club was a while ago now. I left uni a few years ago, but it was sparked because the engineering and computer science school was so male dominated, and that was evident in the student population, but also in the teaching population and within the systems of the school and the way things were taught and communicated. And I just kind of really feel in general that a lot of the problems that a lot of our modern problems in society around like social media and even the way that we engage with politics and business through technological channels, so much of that is due to the fact that we have an undiverse tech industry. And so some of the work I'm doing now is aiming to diversify our tech sector. So I'm on this board, a board of an organization called Tūhura Tech, and that's bringing self-directed tech education into under-resourced areas all over Wellington and in the Hut and Porirua. And basically it's aimed at exposing rangatahi to science and tech education, and especially for those who wouldn't be able to access that through kind of mainstream school channels. And then I'm also on another board called Innovative Young Minds, another organization working on the tech pipeline problem, but this time more focused at young girls. So we run a bunch of programs, a residential one and an online one, to bring them mentors in science, tech, engineering, maths, and high-tech manufacturing. And they get to kind of go visit businesses and see what it really looks like to work in STEM, and start to put themselves in those rooms. And I think there's lots of different kind of pipeline initiatives in the tech sector, but they're really important, and I don't think they'll ever stop being important, because when we build capacity for tech and engineering and data within our people, then that's kind of the only way we can ensure that the solutions we use are made by us and for us. So that's kind of some of the work I do there. And then at Catalyst, I mentioned that I work with libraries and organizations that have knowledge repositories, and that positions us really well to do education and advocacy around like Māori data governance. And I know we've got Ernestine here, who is a real leader in this space as well. And yeah, so we get to kind of do some work around libraries and making sure that that they have the kind of understanding and skills to not only manage knowledge, but also manage Mātauranga and manage Māori resources. And it's especially cool when we get to do that, you know, with Indigenous groups. Actually, earlier this week, I've been at a libraries conference called Lianza. It's kind of New Zealand's like biggest libraries conference. And I was co-presenting about Māori data governance and how the tools that we have available, like the Māori data governance model by Te Kahuiraronga, how those kinds of tools can be applied in libraries and how they can be interpreted for different types of data. So just really trying to make sure that people are informed and know what's available to them. I kind of see my role at Catalyst as like being able to use my tech skills and my connections to support other organizations to do their work, which is uplifting Indigenous or marginalized groups. So an example of that is we did a project in the last year with Auckland University of Technology called EA, which is a research portal for rainbow research or rainbow researchers. And it's like the only platform of its kind in the world that just highlights and honors rainbow research. And it was such a cool thing to pull together. And it's just like an example of I get to do a tech thing, but it brings so much value to these communities, to the people who need that research, but also to the researchers who have put so much energy into creating that that work. And the final thing I wanted to talk about here was around open source advocacy. So Catalyst is an open source software company. And the reason that I think open source advocacy falls under DEI work is because open source is when the code is free to use and share. So anyone can search up the code for an entire project or platform. And this feels like a diversity or inclusion initiative, because if you can access the code and change it yourself, then that means code sovereignty. It's kind of the only way to have absolute control over how your software will behave and look, and how your users will interact with it. So when we're talking to libraries about what kind of library system they're using, we just kind of want them to know that, you know, there is a whole world of tools out there that are open source, that are freely available. So you'll save money, but also you'll gain control. And that's something that that they wouldn't be able to get through proprietary systems. So yeah, it's just kind of about, for us, it's about creating resources for people, keeping people informed, and making sure that our people can make those informed decisions on their own.
Apai e hoa. Again, some amazing insights. And the breadth of your mahi is very impactful. I've seen it myself firsthand. So thank you very much for sharing a little bit more about that important work that you do. E hoa. Coming back to you, Léon, the next question for you both, and this is one selfishly that I inserted into the question list because I don't know what I don't know. So the question is, what does DEI mean to you?
I was definitely having a think about this, and DEI is, especially in my experiences, inclusivity and consideration and being heard, in a space, and not just considered but also actioned, especially through my experiences with working on matariki or te wiki briefs for big brands. It's not just about hearing everyone, but also, especially if you're working for a culture, it's understanding it and then actioning it. So especially a big example was when I would work on those briefs, it wasn't about working to the system that we currently have, but we needed to adopt a lot of te ao Māori to ensure that everybody understood the practices that we were putting out, and practice what you preach. So that's massive for me, and then that carries into everything, that to have D&I, like diversity, equity, and inclusion, is making sure that everyone's heard and considered in action in a space, so that all the voices can be a part of the conversation, especially if they're in that space together. That's been my big learning curve and point, and it's also about being that person that not only like hears but also supports someone else, to be able to be heard and considered and action. Sometimes it feels like maybe I'm the only one, but then in other spaces there's someone else who is an other, and so there's a responsibility that goes both ways, and we need to make sure that it's like give as much as we take. So that's massive for me.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. I love that. Heard, considered, action. It's a very simple framework, I would say. So thank you for sharing that, Mātauranga e hoa, Léon. Coming back to you, Aleisha, pehe o whakaaro.
Yeah, it's very similar to what Léon said. I think that was such a nice, simple framework to put to it. For me, it's acknowledging that there are people who are being systematically excluded, not being heard, not being considered, and definitely not being actioned. And that has an impact on them and their quality of life. And if that's on its own not enough reason to care that that they're having this lower quality of life, then people need to acknowledge that exclusion also has an impact on wider society, and it limits our innovation and our creativity and our empathy for each other, our understanding of each other, if we continue to exclude people. So for me, DEI is that hearing, considering, actioning. It's designing for the marginalized because it will uplift everyone. And I think it's an opportunity to, at least in tech, if we build with DEI in mind, it's this opportunity to import our unique ideas and values into the solutions that people might actually use and have them fit for us. I think a lot of the technology that we're really used to and use every day feels like the kind of the rules are given to us, and we just have to kind of follow whatever processes and things that they've designed and given to us. But I really want our people to know that our tech can actually be built by us and fit to work out with our tikanga. We can build our values into the things that we use, and then they reflect us, and then they are sustainable because they've been built with all of us in mind for our mokopuna. So yeah, it's just what Léon said: hearing, considering, actioning, and not just for us, but for the future.
I just wanted to talk of that for sure, because I think to your point, that whole built by us for us, you know, especially around systems, it is, we get so caught up in a system sometimes, or especially in these corporate spaces, that we feel like we need to adapt, or adapt to the system. Whereas when it comes to this D&I, there is a, it's not. The question is this system built, like, who was it built by and who is it built for? And that's what we have to reteach ourselves, or recreate, is systems that are built for everybody, or and I think that's definitely where we're going, and that's a lot of what what I have to ask myself as well, is like, who is this system built by and who is it for? And
Yes.
like, does it, it's not even a personal value, but is it right? Is it tika? And if not, like, it is about raising your hand and and I don't want to say challenging it, like, I don't want it to be like aggressive, but it is, you definitely need to question it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have an example of that, actually, that people might be able to relate to, is like, do you remember going to public libraries and you'd have books about, for example, Papatuānuku on the shelf under the myths and legends category, under that subject, and it's like, for us, that could be environmental science, or like so many other things, and the classification system that libraries use is Western, and represents their worldviews, but for us, that shoves us in a box, and it's not, I mean, it dishonors the content, but also it makes it hard for us to find our Mātauranga. So yeah, when we try and squeeze into other people's worldviews and what that labeling looks like, it doesn't work for anyone.
Yeah, that's a really good call out. Thank you, Aleisha. And I do find myself thinking about the systems that we live in that weren't designed by us, let alone are for us. And I ask myself these same questions that we're posing right now. So thank you for bringing that to the fore and bringing that to the light. The next question, possibly the question that's going to wrap things up for us before we move into some Q&A. Yeah, something again that I'm really interested in I guess learning, because I'm always trying to find ways to support others within our community. So the pātai, and I'll come back to you, Léon, is how can we, as Hapori members, as community members, as Māori, as Pacific peoples, as te mea, how can we support in a meaningful way in this space? What do you reckon?
For me, the best way to support the space is to support yourself first. It's that, look after yourself before you look after others, because if you have taken care of yourself, you can be there not just for yourself but for others as well. Whereas if you're spreading yourself too thin, then you can't help as much. You can give so much more when you're in a good place. And there was a couple of like points or branches off that as well, which was, for me, finding your tribe. You know, your vibe is your tribe. And I definitely, in this space, even though I was the only Māori in my department, like there were still Māori and Pacifica in my workspace, and we just naturally, you know how we do, like we just naturally magnetized together, and that created such a safe space. And so it didn't feel like it was me against the world. Sometimes it was me, and you know, I had people that were validating and affirming what I had, and then that helped me to also back myself in spaces when I didn't have anyone else, and that's also a part of looking after yourself, because then you're backing yourself in a room, and not just kind of taking on all this weight. So yeah, I would definitely say the big part is supporting yourself so you can be there to support others and grow.
What about you, Aleisha? What are your thoughts?
I really love what you just said, Léon. I think that's so important, and I'm glad that that it was said, because it's a really great point. And I tautoko as well what you said about finding your hapori, your community. Like any of the initiatives that I'm part of, it's not just me. You know, I'm on boards. I've got a team, and that's really important for making sure that the mahi can continue when you do need to step back and take time for yourself and recover from something, so that it needs to exist beyond you, for it to be sustainable and for it to be shared and have that wide-reaching impact, so that you've got champions all over the place. I also think that it's really important for us to keep upskilling and kind of staying at the top of our game and staying competitive, you know, like there's so many resources out there for learning and doing things for free, especially in tech. If that's what you're interested in and you want to learn to code, there's a million ways to get started in something like that. And it's fun, it's cool to learn, but also it opens doors, you know, to have that knowledge and have that skill. So I really encourage our hapori to do that. And finally, staying informed. I think I know that there are some really great leaders in this space. Ernestine is one of them. Kaimahi, Chris Cormack is another. Linda Tuhiwai Smith and Lee himself. Like there are some really, really big voices in Mātauranga Māori and tech. There's even more. I just want us to like lift up our voices, lift up the voices of our people, and learn from our leaders in this space and amplify that, so that when we are in a position where we can make decisions, that they are informed, and that when we are in situations where we might have to compromise on something, that we know what that compromise is, that we're, you know, bringing we've got access to all the information we need to make that decision, and know what the opportunity cost is, and have a plan for getting things back on track if we have to. Yeah.
Amazing. I would love to. Oh, go for it, Léon. Go for it.
Oh, I was just gonna say I definitely tautoko like what you said, and especially I'm a big believer in upskilling, always upskilling, and also the staying competitive really resonated with me, because it's definitely finding a passion, that's something that drives you, that just like you want to, it doesn't feel like a job, it doesn't feel laborious, you just want to keep going to get better, or to prove a point, or and I think even in those times, especially if you can sometimes, if you feel that that's your own competition, and you're just by yourself, I think back to the community, it might not feel like you're directly supporting the community because you're on your own, journey or competition, but it is, you can still be creating pathways by reaching new goals that might be in another space. It's opening up doorways for our community to feel like they can be there or belong there as well. Especially, it's hard because sometimes again, they're systems and they're not our systems, or they're not our competitions. But by getting, to that goal point that you want to be at, it shows to others that they can make it there too. And I mean, by being the first Māori to do something, or, the first person to be in this space, or it's creates this precedence to feel like more of us can be there, and I think that's massive. Like, that's been a big driver for me, is that competitiveness. And it's competitive, especially in advertising, we're so international, and it's like being competitive on a global scale, and not feeling bound by New Zealand, or like feeling like we have to just aim for this small space that's going big. And then by being in this kind of international scale, then it means that others can feel like they can be there and belong there as well. So I definitely is massive.
Yeah, such powerful kōrero. Thank you so much, both of you. Really enjoying the richness of your insight and your kōrero as well. I'm just we're about 12 minutes top of the hour. We've got no partai in the chat as yet. But if anybody online on the call wants to ask a question, please do unmute your microphone, or even provide some reflections or insights. I'll open up for a wee bit, so I'll put it back into the whare kōrero. Is there anybody that would love to like to ask a question of our kai kōrero, of our manuhiri today? Right, all good, because I've got a question for you both. I promise it's not going to be a tough one. Look, you are both leaders in our community today. You've got some amazing acknowledgements already, and you've done some amazing work, as we've heard today. But my question to you both is, how important is visibility, like in this space? Not just in this space, in any space. And so I have a little bit of experience in this area, but I'm really keen to hear, in terms of visibility and the work that you're doing today, and of course the work that you'll be doing in the future. How important is visibility? How important is role modeling? How important is it to show our community and also the future generation to make yourself visible, often when we don't want to put ourselves forward sometimes? Anyway, I'll just leave it there. Aleisha?
It's a good partai. I've actually been thinking about this quite a bit recently, about who is visible. And I think it's hugely important to have visibility, to have role models who look like us, who can represent us well. I think that's the part where it's even more important, though, is the quality of that visibility. Like, you need role models who can back up what they're saying, who are backed up by iwi Māori. They're not standing on their own, and you want to be able to trust your representation, and so sometimes that's not going to be me. Like, there are people like Léon who, if I wanted to hear from leaders who knew about advertising and the fashion space and the arts, I'm not going to go and take that microphone, because that's not my jurisdiction. There are people who can actually speak to that stuff and have all this experience and connection behind them to back it up. And so the right visibility, I think, is really important. And yeah, the kind of the verifiability of our role models, I think. We want to put people in front of us who we can trust to represent and lead us well. And we want those people to recognize when it's their moment and when it's someone else's.
Yeah, wonderful. Léon?
I definitely total with that, and I think as well. I mean, visibility is massive, and in general, it's hugely important. And it's given that, of course, it's great to have like visibility for our community, so that we feel like we can get to those spaces or we can be examples for others. But also, while I was thinking about that, it was also visibility for people outside of our community to have that authenticity and to show them who we are and teach them and bring them along the journey. And I think that's a massive part, is the representation is there for others to see who we are and to learn from that as well, and to know that we have so much to give. I think there was a point where I was for meetings, I reached out to like production companies and directors and all of that, and someone said to me, you know, why don't you like talk to someone like Taika Waititi or something like that? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, like awesome, but also he's not the problem. I'm not concerned about Taika not casting authentically. I'm concerned about the wider industry, and that's why we need to have the representation there, and we need to kind of reach out to them so that they can learn as well, and that has massive impacts for our community too. So I think that's massive in that space.
Yeah, so good. You too. Very, very cool. I've really enjoyed the session. It's been amazing. So thank you. I think this is a natural point for us to wrap up. Just a couple of things before we close out. A couple of parties from me. I just want to promote the Regional Leads Network. Will be launching soon. So basically, we'll have hapori members that we're calling regional leads, or some other cool ingoa Māori in our rohe, in our regions, to be able to pick up a lot of this community-facing membership mahi. So that's coming very soon. I've been leading that mahi out, so watch for that to come through. And also just wanted to tease that we are transitioning to a new membership platform very soon, before the end of this year. We're transitioning to the Circle Community Platform, just FYI. Been doing a lot of mahi in the background on this for the last few months, and it's just about to get real. So if there's anyone online or on this call that is keen to jump into the test group, reach out to me or reach out to kiora@matieko.nz, and we'll get you amongst, so that you can help us to refine the onboarding journey into this new Te Hapori Matieko Circle community platform. But with that, I just want to give the biggest thanks to you, Aleisha, and also to you, Léon, for your time today. I'm very grateful, as I'm sure we all are. Thank you so much. Just want to give you both a mihi from me personally, and just keep doing what you're doing. It's such important work, and it's so inspirational for myself and also for others. So keep at it, keep going, kia kaha. So good. Thanks so much, Aleisha and Léon. Thank you so much to everybody that joined us today, and we hope to see you again in the very near future. Ka pai. Kia ora.